back to the USA Climbing 2023 National Team Trials presented by YETI. We are in Austin, Texas, where the best climbers in the country have gathered to compete for a spot on the Boulder and Lead National Team. USA Climbing is excited to be at the beautiful, brand new Mesa Rim Climbing Center in Austin, Texas. If you're in the area, y'all should come out and check it out. I'm Megan Martin here with three-time Canadian bouldering national champion Allison Best. Allison, thank you again for joining me. And we weren't away for very long, just about 20 minutes, but we're here for the women's final in lead now.
It's been a big day. Sad it's almost over.
It is sad that it's almost over. It's been super exciting, and there is so much at stake. So let's take another look at those current standings. But first, actually, we're going to talk about the route preview as the women are getting a little look at what they're going to get on. You see that clock right next to them has about 3 minutes left. It started with a 6-minute clock, giving them enough time to look the route up and down. They're allowed to bring binoculars out there if they want to. All of the women kind of having those conversations, making sure they have a chance to kind of check in with each other to see if they're all thinking the same things.
Yeah, and previewing is one of the more collaborative portions in competition climbing. We have a preview in both the boulder and the lead disciplines. We didn't see the preview on the live stream in the boulder round, but we are seeing it now with the lead. And it was really cool to see these athletes work together and share information, maybe not too much information, but make sure they're all on the same track. They're all seeing the holds they need to be seeing. And it does help to talk it through with somebody else, even if you might not agree on a section or have some different ideas. It helps to think out loud, and it helps to get some more options, have an option B, have an option C in case you get to a section and it's not what you thought it was going to be.
Exactly. So let's take a look at those national rankings right now. And remember, these are the rankings from the national championships, plus how the athletes are going to do at team trials here. Plus, some of these athletes have bonus points from the World Cup circuit last year. Now, these are the same scores we saw in the bouldering portion. The bouldering portion earlier has not been updated here, but that line there, the top 5, that's what they're trying to be in, the top 5. And that is what all these athletes here are trying to do.
Yeah, and there are some notable names you can see at the bottom missing from this ranking. Natalia Grossman and Brooke Rabitou are already pre-qualified for the international circuit based on their outstanding performances on that World Cup circuit last season. So we will not be seeing them here tonight, but they are already on the team, so no need to worry if they're your favorites. You will still see them on the circuit this year.
Exactly. So let's take a look at the format for the final round. Again, all 8 women will get on the finals route. They will have one route to climb with one attempt and a 6-minute clock. The total points you can gain on this route at the top is 100 points, so that's the goal. They're going to try to get as many as possible, and that will be added to their bouldering score from, about an hour ago. So every woman will be fighting for every hold that they get, and we'll get more into the intricacies of the scoring when we see some of the women on the wall.
You can see our leader in the combined scoring at the moment. Annie Sanders was just on your screen. She had an outstanding bouldering performance in semifinals this morning, topping all 4 boulders, and then followed it up with an even more outstanding finals performance this evening, topping all 4 boulders again and being the only woman to do so. So she has really solidified her spot as the leader in this competition and is going into the lead route with a substantial lead on everybody else.
Yeah, it puts her in a really good spot. And Kyra Condie also having a stellar round in a really great spot as well, looking to improve upon her score from the finals bouldering round. She looked incredible on the semifinals route earlier today. Like you said earlier, she's been putting in so much time with her power endurance and her lead climbing, so she has to be looking forward to getting on this route.
Following that up, we have Kylie Cullen just behind Kyra there. And something that's interesting about Kylie's score is it is incredibly similar to 2 other girls. Helen, Gillette, and Chloe Coscoy are all right on Kylie's tail. So between those 3 athletes in particular, each hold is going to matter.
It really will, and I'm just so excited to see how everything unfolds here. These athletes have been working really hard to get here, and it's great to see that we have a really packed room here. This is a giant facility, and so it's nice to have it quite filled with spectators here. Very excited to see these athletes fight tooth and nail for every point on the lead final tonight.
Can't wait for the action to get started.
Yeah.
All the athletes are heading back into the isolation zone right now. They're going to come out one at a time in the same order that we saw them come out for the boulder round. So we'll be starting with Carrie Scott, and I'm sure she's sitting down there tying in. Quick turnaround from that preview, but I'm sure she's excited to get started.
Yeah, and we'll definitely bring some athletes into the booth later to join us, have a few guests to weigh in on what they think about the round and how everything's going. But we're really excited to get this competition underway. Like Allison said, Carrie Scott is going to start it off for us. She must be really psyched to get on the route, especially after getting through that bouldering round, already coming into it with a lot of bloody fingers and able to survive it and get all the way through it and make some great moves within the round. So really excited to see what she has in store for us on the route.
I did get some information that wasn't necessarily given to me, but we saw Maya Madera sitting next to us in the booth for semifinals, and she was texting Carrie Scott as she qualified for this final round, which was something that she was not expecting to have happen at this competition. And Maya was sort of texting her all excited that she made the next round, and Carrie was just replying, I don't know what to do. Every finger is bleeding.
Oh, I know. Really rough, but she handled it she handled it really well. And don't worry, she was texting her after the comp had ended. Remember, these athletes, when they go into isolation, they don't have their cell phones, so you can't even communicate with them if you wanted to. Quickly, we're getting a nice little pan of the women's route. It's around the corner from where their semifinals route. On the left side, you can see the route they were on earlier this morning, and now they'll be on this right side with the pink holds and black holds at the top there. I think it's going to be another pretty pumpy route.
Here's a more head-on look. And the way that this route works is the holds that are from the ground to the 10 placard that you see on the top of your screen there are worth 1 point each once you reach that zone. As you move towards the 30-point placard, each hold is worth 2 points. From 30 to 60, they're worth 3 points. And from 61 to 100, they are worth 40 points each. If an athlete makes positive movement towards the next hold, that's called a plus, and they are awarded 0.1 of a point.
And that's where, if you want to, you can go into that scoring system and get a better breakdown of what happens on each person's attempts, because we're paying more attention on our screen with their combined scores from bouldering and from lead. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details, you can go on the USA Climbing website and look at the results there. But Carrie Scott is our first climber out, all smiles, ready to go after previewing the route with her fellow competitors. And excited to get this lead final going. I can't believe we're here. I know it's already later in the evening and we started so early today, but it does somewhat feel like it flew by.
Absolutely. And as Carrie Scott gets going, what we talked about this morning too is there is this new scoring format, and it really rewards athletes getting up as high as they can on the lead wall. As we mentioned before, really, really narrow margins between especially Kyra, Condie, Chloe Coscoy, and Kylie Cullen, as you see on your screen.
And we're going to be highlighting the scores as they go. So when someone finishes competing in the lead or on the lead route, we're going to highlight their name to show you that they have already done both the boulder round and the lead round. Because as the scores go, the people in the top 5 spots might stay there with just having competed in the boulder round.
Absolutely. And the reason that the lead route is so scaled, like we're talking about, the top portion being worth more per move than the bottom portion, is because not all lead routes have the same amount of holds on them. So in an ideal world, maybe every single lead route would have exactly 100 moves, but that is not the case, and that would really be restrictive to our route setters. So the alternative was scaling the route down from 100, starting at the top, all the way down to the bottom. So, in fact, the first few moves, about 3 or 4 on this route, aren't even worth anything.
Exactly, and the women know this in the rules as well, so they can figure out counting down from that 10-point placard where the holds at the bottom aren't actually worth any points. So Carrie smoothly working her way past that 10-point placard as she approaches into that zone where every scored hold will be worth 2 points now. So all of those movements going forward are going to reward her more than those opening moves within the route.
And Megan, Carrie is in a really similar position that she was in this morning, where she had a kind of a disappointing boulder round. I think she maybe didn't get as many points as she wanted to tonight either. But this morning she had an absolutely outstanding lead performance and was able to turn that result around, so much so that she made the final. And so if history is set to repeat itself here, hopefully we see something great happen on the lead route for Carrie Scott, and that she's able to I guess, make some moves up the leaderboard.
Right? I mean, she did it once, she can do it again, and she's already looking really smooth. This looking like kind of the first part that tripped her up a little bit, just a little bit of a committing move there. Probably the most powerful move thus far as she gets more into that overhang. Missed the foot kick there, but able to recover quickly. See if she can keep moving through nicely. Oof.
Really fancy footwork there from Carrie Scott on that pinch.
Taking a second to shake, which is really smart. Trying to get to that next placard, that 30 placard, where the hold scoring jumps again. Every move is worth points, and she needs those points after coming into this round with a lower scoring point value.
She's doing a really good job of being creative with her beta, but also being patient and making sure she's in a comfortable position before she leaves one hand or the other.
Oh, really good effort from Carrie Scott. Really great climbing. I think she was really intentional with every movement, like you were saying, and really making sure she kind of got into the right position. So her combined score is 51.8. Nice attempt there by Carrie Scott, signing off with the judge, making sure she got the right score. Moves her up a couple spots right now, but we still have a lot of women to climb, so we'll see how these scores change throughout the round. But she has to be happy with her performance here today. This has been a really long day, 2 rounds of bouldering and 2 rounds of lead, and all smiles from Carrie Scott.
As we said before, it's been really great to watch Carrie excel in this competition. She's been competing for a really long time. She has a lot of friends, a lot of supporters at this competition and afar, and she's got a lot of people rooting for her because she's a great climber, but she's also a great person. And there you have our combined standings. Carrie Scott has completed the route. She was seen there in 6th position, and Annie Sanders obviously still holding down that top spot.
Zoe Bitters coming out for her attempt on the women's final route. If you missed our broadcast of the bouldering final, Carrie Scott, Zoe Bitters, and Helen Gillette all first time in a national elite level final, and that referencing either nationals or team trials, so really big for them. Her boulder score was 44.7. She also climbed really well on the route earlier. In fact, she even slipped, so definitely had more in the tank to give. So let's see if she can put that into play on her attempt of the women's final route.
The start of this final route really echoes what we saw this morning in semifinals, with not necessarily physically taxing movements, but just a little bit uncomfortable and off balance, trying to test these athletes, see if they're up to the challenge and they have the confidence to move through these moves well and without over gripping and without getting too nervous. And we see Zoe here taking the time to figure out the right method, and it's really intimidating when a route starts off like this and is a little bit awkward and a little bit funky, and you don't feel necessarily so sure of yourself. It's really important to stay calm and stay in it.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable enough to really keep you on your toes and make you really start committing to the movements right off the bat. There's definitely no gimmies at all in this route, so they have to be really in form from the get-go. And the route just kind of builds on itself. Like we saw Carrie get into that middle section, it gets a lot more powerful. So you're trying to conserve energy, trying not to overgrip when you feel uncomfortable down low. Because even though it's not the most difficult movement, sometimes just feeling uncomfortable can make you overgrip.
Absolutely, and you saw a little bit of relief, I think, in Zoe's body language once she entered this blue section we see here as she moves towards that 10-point zone.
Exactly. Able to work through that really nicely. It's funny, you have the 10-point from the semifinal route right next to it right now. As she stems her weight, just sinking into those hips, the crowd really reacting to the flexibility that Zoe Bitters is showing, able to maneuver from one side of her split to the other, which takes a lot of flexibility.
She's doing a really good job of maneuvering between these positions and working her way up between these two volumes. It's always a little bit of a relief on your arms and on the pump when you can find ways to either be in the splits or have those drop knees like Zoe's found and get a little bit back as she moves up into this slightly overhanging position, it'll be a lot more taxing on her arms. You can see her taking her time to try to figure out how to best get into these blue volumes and work her way up into the more in-cut holds in that yellow section.
Really nice articulation of the movements by Zoe Bitters as she starts working her way into that steeper section of the wall. She has done a good job of conserving that energy with the hip movements, like you were saying, Allison. So hopefully she's conserving enough energy to keep going. Looks like she has some good breathing, taking moments to rest and reassess as she can see the holds now, because it's one thing to be on the wall and another to see them from the ground. Unfortunately, not able to make it happen there. Great attempt from Zoe Bitters. Really, really nice climbing. Let's take another look at her attempt to get into that hold. Really stretched out there. And she is one of the shorter climbers in this field right now at just 5'3" with a +3, so that is a pretty big move for her. We saw Carrie Scott kind of get through that move a little easier, being 5'8" with a +2, so Zoe had to really go for it. Her combined score from bouldering earlier and lead putting her at a 64.8, so really great climbing from her.
Megan, I think she will have a little bit of a bittersweet taste without that score. I think both of the routes, both in the semifinal and in the final, she had more to give.
Yeah.
She had a foot slip in the semifinal, and that definitely didn't look like all that she was ready to put out there on the lead route tonight. But yeah, I mean, that is sort of the reality of competition climbing, and it's something that is a factor in lead in particular. You do only get one go. If you have a foot slip in the boulder round, you do get to try again. You have a specific amount of time, but lead is a little bit unforgiving in that way. You have one foot slip and it's over.
And with that, I would like to also welcome our guest in the booth. Cece Kopp is joining us. Welcome, Cece.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we're getting ready to watch Helen take her turn on the women's final route. Helen with quite the final round in bouldering. I felt like she kind of gave us a taste of what she could do in bouldering in semifinals, but really came out and was really efficient in the bouldering round tonight. So it'll be cool to see what she does in on the lead route tonight.
And man, has she looked good in lead all weekend.
Yeah, she has. She's looked amazing.
Week during the week here in Austin.
It feels like it's been...
It's always a weekend. Even on a Tuesday or Wednesday,
hard.
It's a weekend.
It's hard not to reference a weekend because it used to always be like that. And then at the end of the day, we're just like, wait, what day is it? Does it matter? It really doesn't. Helen quickly working her way into the women's final. A little indecisive there, but quickly figuring it out. I feel like once you get into that blue section, you can kind of breathe again for a second. Those opening moves are just a little uneasy.
Kind of funny story too. For the semifinal today, we were able to look at the routes before our formal preview.
Yes.
And neither one had a tag as a semifinal, so a lot of us read this route and thought this was the semifinal climb.
Oh, that is interesting.
Just a little fun tidbit.
I also heard some people thought it was a men's route.
Sure. Yeah.
Helen into the 10 now. So after this, every scored hold that she grabs will be worth 2 points. Looking really calm here.
And like we said this morning, the route setters don't necessarily want to lose anybody before this position down low in these awkward movements, but it is just meant to make sure that you are on point and you don't make any mistakes.
And when we think about what this is selecting for, the World Cups, those routes, they're hard off the bat.
They really are.
I've seen countless climbers fall before the first bowl on a World Cup.
So no matter what, it is also great practice if you're going to get on the national team and be able to get on the World Cup circuit. Helen.
You can see Helen's not really finding those same positions as Zoe did with her flexibility in the drop knees. She's getting a little bit of rest there, but not quite the same relief of the arms that we saw from Zoe a little bit earlier.
Totally, but this bigger move coming up should suit Helen a little bit better as she is 5'7" with a +2. So that reach not really having to make her muster up a lot of momentum to get into that hold. Comes a little short there.
Trying
Again
a bit
to
of
the crimp.
Yeah, bit of a different sequence than we saw Carrie. Carrie led with the heel, and Helen choosing to go hands first.
Yeah, and I almost wondered too if like leading with the heel felt a little more comfortable for Carrie, knowing that her skin was really kind of suffering. It was just a little more secure.
Elbow flaring up a little for Helen. You can tell she's working hard here.
Yep, and just standing on that slippery.
Turning on that fight.
Oh.
And I don't know if you saw in the background of your screen there, you can see through the windows we're having a little bit of a storm here in Austin, and you saw a very dramatic flash of lightning as Helen fell there. A little
Adds
pathetic
the
fallacy.
Yeah, you know, we're really putting on a show here. The next thing we need is fireworks. Really great climbing from Helen Gillette with a score of 84.6. Fought all the way through and totally worth it, putting her up in a second place spot right now. So we'll have to see how the rest of the competition goes. All smiles there from Helen Gillette. You see 84.5. I think it should be a 0.6, but just one little point off there. So Helen Gillette in a great position. So the judges confer and update things, so that's why our score says 84.5, but it's really 84.6. So we'll have to see if she's able to hold on in those top spots through the rest of the round. I can't believe we're already through three competitors. Yeah, so we're already on our fourth competitor. It's so fast, actually. Might even say it's lightning fast. Insert corny joke here.
It's kind of nice. Usually the final drags on, for lack of better words, forever. So the new format in bouldering, having multiple climbers on the wall and hard routes, yeah, it changes up the style for sure.
And next up here we have Chloe Coscoy coming into this lead route. I think CCU maybe have some good insight into Chloe's psyche. You've lived with her for a while, you've trained with her for a while, you know how she operates, and I feel like she's improved so much in lead over the past few years.
So much in lead, and she's put in the work to do that as well. I think she's excited. I know semifinals was kind of the big stressful round for her. Not like finals isn't stressful, but semis is the place where she didn't want to make a big mistake. So I'm hoping to see her climb kind of like light and fun and free in Chloe. See if she can make that happen.
Second guessing a little here at the start, but looking like she's in a better position now. Not gonna lie, I was a little on the edge of my seat there for a moment. Talking to her a little bit before the finals, she definitely seemed really excited to get out here, like you were saying, and really happy that her training seems to be in line with what she's able to bring to the field of play. Because obviously you all train so much, and the goal is to make sure that it aligns perfectly when you're in the competition, but you know that doesn't always happen, so it's really nice when it does.
Chloe, I think, relieved once again, as we've seen from the athletes previously, to get through that bottom section.
Definitely don't want to fall before the 10-point hold. Just a little stab in the heart there.
For sure.
Yeah.
And those scored zones, we were talking about it, it's kind of funny. They obviously don't really matter. They do, but it's not like, wow, I got 10. Now it's like completely different. It's just kind of like a nice to know. You're like, okay, I got 10. Okay, I got 30.
Yeah.
Here's these like checkpoints on the route.
Totally. And just a reminder, if you're just joining us, the holds from 1 to 10 are worth 1 point, and then when you go from 11 to 30, those are worth 2 points. 31 to 60 is worth 3 points. 61 to 100 is worth 4 points. And when an athlete falls but goes with positive movement, they get an extra 0.1. Chloe kind of struggling a bit here, but able to get into that next hold.
And yeah, with
really fighting.
With that scoring breakdown, Megan, as we see Chloe barely getting through that section with her incredible shoulder flexibility. With that new scoring format, it exponentially rewards athletes to get higher up on the route as they build upon their score. It only gets better and better. So really getting up towards that 60 and above makes a huge difference as far as numerical scoring goes in this competition.
Exactly. Really nice to see Chloe have that deep release of breath there. She had to fight so hard, and she was clearly holding her breath. Kind of an earlier fall for Chloe, though this route does seem to be quite physical, especially when you get into that section, and she kind of had a little bit of a struggle right before that section, so to come back from that was pretty difficult, but that gives her a total score of 86.7. So puts her in ahead of all the other athletes who have already climbed in the lead thus far. So she's in second right now, just above Helen Gillette, really narrowly above Helen Gillette. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of the women's lead final in a second.
You have to fail multiple times to find the right way. But once you find that right flow, and you're gonna be more successful.
Resilience is kind of understanding that like bad things will happen and that like you can turn those into opportunities to grow and become a stronger person.
When I was young, I was one of the only women in climbing. I was the kid at the gym climbing with all the older dudes. I think for me, it was sort of like a proving ground.
I've had those struggles too, that people have been upset that there's been a black person in their gym. And I'm resilient because I don't let it stop me.
Adversity teaches you to fail properly. And if you're not willing to accept failure, then you're never gonna learn to grow.
Bro, whatever you can throw at me, like, you're not gonna take me away from what I wanna do. You can't stop me.
Welcome back to the women's lead final at the USA Climbing 2023 National Team Trials presented by YETI. We've already seen 4 of the women go, and there is a quick look at the route setters, just kind of conversing about how the athletes have been doing on this final route. Look at Chief Route Setter Brad Weaver. I'm sure they have to be pretty pleased with their work so far. I mean, this is a really difficult route already, seeing the women kind of struggle and having to really fight for every hold. So
what's really important,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what's really important with this combined format is that the difficulty level of the lead route and the boulder route are reflected evenly. So if it's a hard boulder round, it needs to be a hard lead route so that they have a similar scoring put in place. And that requires a lot of communication between the route setting teams. It is a different team setting the lead route than is setting the boulder round. And so they've done a really good job in both the semifinals and the finals of communicating with each other and making sure the level of both the lead route and the boulder round is accurate.
So true. And Adrian Akiko is going to get started on her attempt of the lead route, already moving pretty confidently through this bottom section. It is kind of awkward. So not wasting any time here will serve her well, because we've seen a lot of the women kind of second guess themselves down low.
And Adrian not quite so well in the bouldering round, but definitely has the potential to make up those points here on the lead route.
Yeah, I feel like she climbed well, but the points might not reflect how well she climbed, and that's always tricky. It's a tricky situation to be in, right? Because you know you did a good job, but she's coming into this round really needing to gain more points if she wants to stay up high in the rankings.
You see her almost getting to the relief point of the 10-point zone.
The exhale moment. It's been interesting, too, because in both the qualification round and in the semifinal round, she had some crazy saves and moments where she had to deal with some sort of bobble and then was able to fight through it and then get a lot more points after that. So it'll be really nice to see her kind of just have a smooth final. We've already seen the excitement from her in the earlier rounds and seen her persevere through it.
And
she's really, go.
I was just going to say, just as you were saying that, Megan, she sort of had a little bit of a mishap with that clip.
I know, but that's very small. She was still in a pretty stable position. I mean, the dry fire slip she had earlier was insane.
And I want to say the maturity in Adrian's climbing this year compared to last is really, really impressive.
I'm glad you noticed that too.
Like, she's grown up a little bit, and wow, it is showing in her climbing. It's really cool.
No hesitation there to get into that really large sphere. That's pretty good on the right side, but then they have a really powerful committing move to that crimp, choosing to go hands first versus feet first as well.
She made that look pretty chill, I think what she just did was very, very impressive to stay on the wall. That's super cool.
Yeah, and a nice overhead shot here. You can really get a feel at how steep this wall really is as she's, you know, resting and going back and forth between her right and left hand and readjusting her heel in order to make sure she's in a stable position. Because even though that heel hook's really good, you don't want to have some sort of mishap.
Adrian's now pushing into that high point.
I think right there should be it.
It is it if she can progress just one move farther, and she
There she
does.
This route really doesn't let off from here through the top. It's Anya. This next section specifically, that egg hold.
Oh.
But again, from that 30 point, which she did arrive at, heading up towards that next 60 point placard, every hold is worth 3 points. So that Adrian did really well of pushing as far as she could past that 30 and hopefully creating some separation between her and the people behind her. And I mean, I think she did as best she could there and did what she needed to do to sort of make up some ground from the falling behind a little bit in the boulder ground.
Yeah, she should be really happy with that performance, and it puts her in a good spot. She has now a score of 88.9. So if you take a look at the standings at this point, that should put her in a really good spot, 88.9 in second right now. So kind of right where she wants to be. Obviously, you always want more points, but that's a really good score. And the fact that Annie is still in the #1 spot from just the bouldering round alone is incredible. It just speaks to her domination of the bouldering round.
Yeah.
But we do have more climbers to go and some really strong lead climbers as well. So we will, I'm sure, see people pushing up towards that high point at least, and hopefully getting a few moves at least beyond it and getting some higher scores.
A route like this makes me curious, if it was in an earlier round where the climbers were less fatigued, how would they perform? Because I know that fatigue factor today is hugely playing in.
Honestly, I cannot imagine how
Oh my God.
they must be so exhausted.
Not tired, and not to mention bleeding out of probably 8 out of 10 tips.
I also bet they feel great knowing that they got to do this first. Now the men have to go through it tomorrow.
We're just going to sit back and laugh tomorrow as we watch.
Cece, leading up to this event, does that change your training at all, knowing you have a big day like this coming up?
Definitely. We did quite a few combined training days, boulder rounds and lead routes all in the same day, and that's good practice. And it's hard every single time you do it.
Kylie Cullen getting the okay to take another quick look at her final route, her final climb of the night. That bouldering score down below from earlier, 64.7. Pretty good score to add upon. Definitely capable of getting a lot of points here. I was talking to her earlier today, and actually she mentioned that she feels more relaxed when she lead climbs versus in the bouldering round. So somehow it makes her, or not somehow, I don't think it's surprising, but it definitely makes her have an ability to kind of perform at her best more often because she's just a little more relaxed and isn't as stressed about it.
And we saw in that semifinal round, Kylie really needed a good lead performance, and she was the last one out on the wall, and it came down to that last climb, and she
delivered.
She could not afford to make any mistakes in that route, and it was really stressful to watch, and I'm sure really stressful to compete, and she pulled through.
Oh yeah, I think she did an amazing job. And
just speaks to her as a competitor.
Yeah. And another athlete who over the years has really matured a lot. I mean, Allison, you mentioned this earlier, like her first year of eligibility was very successful, but she's really carried that consistency through year after year after year with at such a young age. It's really hard to stay that consistent so early, so she's been handling that pressure really well, and it's cool to see her, you know, out here again in the final.
And she also has a really great support crew. Her mom, I think you can hear cheering in the background, was also really nervous this morning. And I'm sure helping
Coach Al.
Yeah, Al.
And I'm sure they're really also helping her out with just the logistics of a day like this. I mean, for Kylie to come out last in the semifinal round, it means she had the least amount of turnaround before having to go back into isolation. So that maybe involves mom going to the grocery store and getting you some snacks or whatever. So these athletes don't do it alone, and I think a lot of them are so grateful to have their coaches and their parents and their family and friends here to support them.
Definitely looking the best we've seen here. Doesn't really look like that fatigue has hit her yet, so really optimistic that she has a lot more in the tank, and hopefully we'll see a new high point soon.
Yeah, cruising.
I feel like she's kind of racing through this.
I think that's a good tactic here. We talk
Yes.
about pacing a lot on a lead route, and this part of the climb, it doesn't let off, so get through it as fast as you can.
This is an amazing shot of
It
Kylie
really
and
is.
her mom. You can see the expression on her mom's face, just rooting for Kylie to get one more move.
See
Incredible
her
to
filming
see.
every moment. This is amazing. Kylie's still looking really fresh here.
It's interesting to see what different athletes' reaction is to feeling that pump, feeling that burn.
Oh, such great effort there from Kylie Cullen.
Some athletes accelerate, like I think we
Yep.
saw Kylie do, feel the pump come on and start to try to go faster to try to get as many moves in before you can't get any more. Some athletes slow down and take a lot more time to rest, and that was really good tactics from Kylie, and I think she got a lot more out of what she had left to give.
Yeah, really just almost staying
thought she
on
had it,
that
yeah.
crimp. She
That
just
was
kind
very
of, it looks
close.
like she probably dry fired a little bit, maybe just undershot it a tiny bit, but really great climbing from Kylie Cullen, 1:12.8. That should put her at the top of the standings, as Annie has that 99.5 from just the bouldering round. So Kylie in a really good spot now, and really great climbing from her. Just so cool to see her get to fight on the route and have that much energy after this terribly long day.
Yes. I'm excited to watch her on the World Cup circuit this year.
Yeah.
Olympic year, she's definitely a combined athlete.
Yeah.
And yeah, anybody in the running, that's very cool.
Oop. Oop. A little trip there. Climbers are really good at climbing. Walking's a little difficult.
Speaking of our queen of the boulder round,
Yeah.
here we have Annie Sanders. She actually was only recently bumped into second place, as Megan just mentioned, by Kylie on that last lead route. So she's been holding down that top spot up until about 2 minutes ago. And she's looking to reclaim it here with a good lead performance.
And looking at this route so far, it does look like another route where her style of climbing, which is more static, will be what she's able to do. I don't think she's going to be forced in too many uncomfortable positions for her. So I think she'll be really psyched to get on it, and I'm sure she's looking for a top because she just missed it in semis.
I bet it also feels good to walk into a lead route with such a good bouldering performance. Like having that discipline first. Yeah, I mean, she's well on her way to the top spot at this event. So
The main concern for Annie Sanders is likely going to be the clock. She tends to get into these funky rest positions between all these volumes especially, and to take her time and to make sure she's planning her route out well and being methodical with her rests. However, that does push her towards the end of the time. We saw in semifinals she only had 8 or 9 seconds left on the clock when she went for the final hold. So although she was at the top, she does have to get there within that 6-minute time limit. So we'll see if that comes into play here in the final round as well.
Megan, were you competing when they introduced the 6-minute time limit?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
I feel like I've heard some like
I
infamous
do.
stories about 70 move lead routes.
I no, actually maybe I wasn't. I think that might have been my break from climbing, because I feel like I always remember a 6-minute clock actually, but it might have existed. I might have just forgotten. It's a long time ago. I'm 33 years old. I'm old. I can't remember all that stuff. Don't forget, Annie Sanders is the current lead national champion as well as the bouldering national champion. So
Clean sweep.
Yeah, clean sweep. Looking for a clean sweep again. So
Young gun on the circuit. This is her first year of open eligibility.
Came in with a
Obviously,
punch.
Yeah,
A 1-2 punch.
making quite a name for herself already.
Very methodical with all of her movements. I do think she would have loved the time period of
The 70 move route. Yeah,
the 70 move route for sure.
that would have been up her alley. Yeah, absolutely.
Where most people would dread it, I think she would love it. Really not looking like she's that tired at all here. A little bit of heavy breathing, but I don't think it's that fatigue breathing yet. It's just making sure she's breathing in every movement, catching her breath when she can.
She's got a good amount of time on the clock still, so choosing to kind of go feet first here. Not quite like we saw Carrie do it.
Again, classic Annie, sort of spending a good amount of time figuring out this section, working her way through, making sure she doesn't commit to something too early, and in the end going for that hand first, a little bit more powerful method, as we saw Adrian and a couple of the other athletes do it that way. Looking pretty comfortable on this perch, getting the clip a little bit lower than some other athletes, resting on holds that we've seen some of her fellow competitors power through.
Seriously, I mean, I think I just reacted with a crazy face because I can't believe she's going back and forth between these two holds. And then, like, with the lock-off position, not even trying to find it. Like, now she's got a more elongated position, but before she was fully locked off. Annie does generally spend more time in these sections. I do think this next section she should move through a little quicker than the previous sections because it is more straightforward and more powerful. As long as she feels comfortable on every move, she does tend to take time to rest a little bit and reassess when she feels uncomfortable. But so far, looks like she's feeling quite comfortable making those decisions and just continuing to move.
Still cutting her feet and hopping them up a little bit, which is not the most efficient way to do things, so she's still clearly got a lot left in the tank. She's now approaching that section where we lost Kylie Cullen, taking the time to rest, getting into a good position where she can really straighten her arms and try to take some of the strain off of her muscles. You can see her looking up ahead as she's resting to try to make a plan. Going up with the other hand than Kylie did.
Wow, that was so impressive. Very, very long lock-off, too, which is something she's really good at. Not everybody can just kind of pull through like that. That's a very talented way to move, and she's just so strong. Everybody in the kiss and cry you see in the corner, quite impressed by that choice of movement as well. I mean, looking at the route map, she just skipped from the 48-point hold all the way to the 54-point hold. Moving into that final section where every hold is worth 4 points now. So she's going to have a very high score at the end of this round that will be combined with that score from the bouldering round.
And finding another rest position. When I read this route, I was sure, when you reach the pinches, you just had to take it to the top. But
I guess not if you're Annie Sanders.
Not if you're Annie Sanders.
I mean, Megan, this is absolutely incredible. As you said, this has been a breakout season for Annie Sanders. She might be the future of this sport in USA Climbing, and I think this is a moment we're going to remember for a really long time. She is really solidifying her place in the future of this sport in this country, and it is amazing to be here to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's an honor to get to witness this fortitude that she has physically and mentally and just coming out and dominating. And I think she has enough time to finish. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, she moved faster in this route than we've seen her move in the past, so she's already learning from the previous competition.
Annie Sanders is going to try to clip the chains of this route without going to the finish hold,
which would solidify, I believe, oh no, she still has to get to, no longer, she has to get to the top hold, and she's got one hand on it, so Annie Sanders with the top. And that's exactly what the crowd want. Also, a Texan in Austin, Texas, topping this route and running away with this competition. No one can beat her. She has a score that is unbeatable.
And Megan, that was a little bit confusing for us even there at the end. The old rules stated that all you had to do was clip the last draw to be able to complete the route. So in the old rules, if she had reached up like that and clipped the last draw or the anchor, she could have let go. That is no longer the rule, so you do actually have to have control over the last usable hold on the route. As we see her inching towards that little finish hold there, she did need to do that move to have a full score, and she does. And once again, as we saw in the semifinal route, she just has 5 falls there from the boulder round, but that is essentially 200.
It's basically a perfect score minus those falls. That's the only reason why she did all the boulders and she did the route, putting her all in first place, which she was only in second going into this. So really nice climbing from Annie Sanders. And really exciting too, just clipping before going to the final hold. Also, I think it's cool now that that is the rule, because then the route setters can not have to worry about that final clip, because you know no matter what, you got to take it to the top.
And you honestly couldn't tell from her composed demeanor right now, but Annie Sanders is not beatable by Kyra Condie, our last athlete on the wall. She has solidified her spot as the winner of this event. However, there is still a lot to play for Kyra Condie. She is currently in 6th place, and I think she's really looking to move herself up that leaderboard a little bit farther, and she's going to have a good performance here on the lead route to make that happen.
And Kyra, always a really fun athlete to watch. Lots of expressions from Kyra Condie, very dynamic movements from her climbing, so she's going to put on a great show as the final climber coming out here tonight.
A hard route like this, I think, is also something that Kyra would ask for in a comp if she could, because she's got that power from bouldering, and she knows that that would suit her well. Excited to watch.
And even though she can't beat Annie, she still could top the route.
Oh yeah,
she's definitely capable.
100%.
So we could see back-to-back tops, which would be really exciting.
And like Allison said, that rank is really, really important for factoring into the World Cup team this year. So Kyra's definitely going to want to be up there, secure that spot.
One thing that Kyra does have to lean on is she did have a really good nationals performance, and she has talked a little bit about how that takes the pressure off team trials. I'm sure similar to Chloe Coscoy, the semifinal round was maybe the slightly more stressful even round than this. So I think she's going to have a good time being a little bit more chill in this lead round than she normally would be. And when she's in that state of mind, I think she is capable of having a really, really good lead result. She's been feeling really good on a rope recently. She does live in Salt Lake City, where the USA Climbing National Training Center is, and the head coach of the national team, Josh Larson, who is setting comp-style routes like this at the local gyms all the time. So she has had practice on these routes. Right now we see the Boulder and Lead national team standings.
But this is just the standings, including the bouldering round earlier, so the lead scores haven't been put in yet, but coming from the bouldering round of competition, this is where the standings are. So a good performance here from Kyra Condie would pull her up and put her in a really good position to get to do the World Cups this year. Kyra Condie continuing to work her way through the powerful section and
shaking out on 30.
I was going to say showing
shaking
signs
out in the next hold.
Not being too tired.
I think Kyra has always had this really incredible potential in lead, but hasn't leaned into it as much as she has in the past year. And it's really paying off for her, and we are seeing that here. Looking super composed still, moving into this move where we lost Kylie Cullen. Heading up towards the left. That's the hold that Annie skipped towards. But
yeah, that seems like the more intended beta.
Yeah.
What we saw Annie do was more of a skip, and what Kyra just did.
According to the route map, that is definitely the sequence that they thought they would go with. And nice to see Kyra getting up into that 60. We knew that she was capable of possibly topping. She is starting to look a little tired, but maybe she'll be able to keep going. Not going to make it happen, but amazing show from Kyra Condie. Will put her in a really good position to hopefully make that national team. Remember, 5 women will be added onto the national team tonight to join Brooke Rabitou and Natalia Grossman, who are the pre-selected athletes that have already qualified through the IFSC events from last season.
And Kyra is a really determined athlete. I think obviously making the national team was her main priority, but also she wants to do well in this competition, and that combined score of 132.9 does push her into 2nd place, which is as well as she could have done having Annie come out before her and top this route and make her unbeatable. So I think Kyra's going to be really excited with that score. I think she's been working really hard in this combined format. And obviously she was one of the U.S. Olympians in Tokyo 2020, so she'll be looking hopefully to have that same result and make her statement in Paris 2024.
Exactly. So I'm going to go catch up with the winner, and I'll see you all in a bit. Enjoy your time up here while I'm down there.
Sounds good, Megan.
And we see a lot of camaraderie happening here. Kyra giving hugs to all of these people, and
yeah, I mean, everyone in the circuit, we're all such good friends. Everybody is in it for themselves, but wants to see everyone else perform to their best as well. So.
And there's another look at that zone. Kyra clearly still pumped after coming off that lead route. It's always really interesting coming down from the lead route and not really knowing how much people want to talk about it, if somebody had a good round, if they've had a bad round.
Yeah.
But you can see her talking to Chloe there, and it looks like they're counting places.
I mean, they might not even know the scores, considering how close, not necessarily right at the top there. It's pretty clear that Annie won and Kyra's in second, but right in the middle, we're separated by attempts.
Yeah, and you can see Chloe there was gesturing to where she fell and how she lost it. And I think Chloe's a little bit disappointed with her lead result, and you could see that in her face there when she was giving Kyra the rundown on what happened while she was still in isolation. We got a big crowd exodus here. There's a big storm in Austin happening right now, so I think people are eager to get in their cars and head home and make it out of there.
It was nice to have such a big turnout for this event, though. Finally felt like a real crowd and everything.
And I think if you look there, that's the head coach of the national team, Josh Larson. I think he is showing those ladies the results for the combined team results. They all have made the team there, and Josh is letting them know because there is so much math involved. It's really hard to know exactly what the ranking and the results are. So those athletes are waiting towards the end and having their coach come up to them with his phone with all the results in front of him.
Here we go. Presentation. Kylie, Cullen in third place, Kyra, Condie in second, and Annie Sanders taking the title here.
And these three athletes have been really consistent over the weekend in qualifiers, in semifinals, in finals. I think these three were all really strong contenders to be on this podium, and I think it working out this way is really incredible. And all these three worked really hard, and yeah, I hope that we see some good results for them this season on the World Cup circuit as well.
It's going to be exciting. Watch and see.
And you can see Annie Sanders there. She's heading over, I think, to have a little chat with Megan, so we'll get down there in a moment and hear what she has to say about the weekend and about the result here in the final, because as I said before, I really do think she is the future of the sport in this country, and she has proven that here both this morning in the semifinal round and tonight in the final. And without further ado, I think we're going to throw it down to Megan for an interview with our winner.
Annie, congratulations on being the first ever Boulder and Lead National Team Trials champion. You were the national champion in lead and bouldering at Nationals in November. How does it feel to walk away again as the champion in two disciplines, and also to have done all four boulders and top the route?
It feels amazing. I'm glad I was able to keep it together and top all the boulders and the route.
And this was a pretty complicated route, and it looked like you were really enjoying the problem solving. How did that feel while you were up there?
I wasn't as stressed out because I knew I did well in bouldering, so I was able to relax on this route, and it ended up very nice. Yeah.
Well, huge congratulations again, and it really showed that you were able to stay relaxed and dominate that route. We're so proud of you, and we can't wait to see you in all of the World Cups to come.
Thank you.
Well, I think that girl's got a bright future ahead of her, and I can't wait to see what she does next as we head into this super important season. Real quick, there's your national rankings. Annie Sanders coming out on top, followed closely by Kyra, Condie, Kylie, Cullen,
Chloe Coscoy.
That should be Chloe Coscoy, and then Adrian Akiko just above the line. Those five people will make up your national team, in addition to Natalia Grossman and Brooke Rabatou, who are not here today because they are pre-qualified for the international season based on their incredible results from last year. And with that said, we are going to be announcing the national team soon and the podium, so stick around if you want to see that. And Al, our in-house MC, will take you through that presentation and awards. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a big day if you've been with us through every round. It's been a lot of sports action, and we can't wait to bring you the men's round and speed finals, all happening tomorrow here at Mesa Rim in Austin, Texas. Thanks, and see you tomorrow.
You have to fail multiple times to find the right way. But once you find that right flow, and you're gonna be more successful.
Resilience is kind of understanding that like bad things will happen and that like you can turn those into opportunities to grow and become a stronger person.
When I was young, I was one of the only women in climbing. I was the kid at the gym climbing with all the older dudes. I think for me it was sort of like a proving ground.
I've had those struggles too, that people have been upset that there's been a black person in their gym. And I'm resilient because I don't let it stop me.
Adversity teaches you to fail properly. And if you're not willing to accept failure, then you're never going to learn to grow.
Bro, whatever you can throw at me, like, you're not going to take me away from what I want to do. You can't stop me.
Whether you're alpine climbing or cragging after work, Gnarly Nutrition is here to help you push your possible.
Travel doesn't have to be this super exotic international thing. It can really be out of your own backyard. The high desert is so three-dimensional and it's so big that there is no way you could ever see everything here. The orange and brown and yellow, it's just so endless. Whether it's something I've done before or something brand new, there's so much to explore just right here.
So yeah, we've been testing out the new catch and hold system from the TruBlue IQ Plus. And with the IQ Plus, you know, you're just able to stop there, rest, shake out, try to figure out the moves, and yeah, really excited to have this new device in our gym. It's going to just really help us to continue growing the sport.
Since 1966, we have viewed walls not as obstacles, but as opportunities. From the big walls of Yosemite to the high peaks of the Himalaya, we were searching for a personal kind of freedom. In this pursuit, we found a community, strengthened by different stories, experiences, and perspectives. This community has shown us that the only way forward is together.
shout at Happy Jane so we can pull that music down low for our formal awards ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the awards ceremony for the 2023 National Team Trials presented by YETI at Mesa Rim Climbing Center in Austin, Texas. At this time, we would like to take a moment to thank our amazing partners. Founding partner, The North Face, YETI, Prudential, EP Climbing Walls, PETZL, Gnarly Nutrition, TruBlue Autobelays, and Grasshopper Climbing. Without their support, amazing events like the one you've seen here tonight would not be possible. Awards will be presented by Mark Norman, CEO of USA Climbing, Kate Felsen DiPietro, Chair of the USA Climbing Board of Directors, and Casey College, Mesa Rim Austin Site Manager. Now please welcome the women's Boulder and Lead medalists. In third place, taking the bronze medal, Kylie Cullen. In second place, taking the silver medal, Kyra Condie. And in first place, taking the gold medal and winning the Boulder and Lead discipline, Annie Sanders. And now, in addition to being on the podium today, ladies, if you would please stay here for just a moment because you just made it on the national team. As well as two others, Chloe Coscoy, if you would please come up here. And Adrian Akiko Clark. There they are. As well as our two pre-selected athletes not present today, Natalia Grossman and Brooke Rabatou. Between these five plus those two, that's our national team, ladies and gentlemen. And what that means is that in the coming months, they are vying for a spot for the USA in the Olympics. That's it. That's the show, at least until tomorrow. Once again, everybody, thank you so much. What a night it's been. I hope to see you tomorrow. We got so much more in store. Good night.